I never expected to see her face again when I met a seller who looked just like my ex-wife. The moment my eyes locked onto hers, time turned to ice. My heart stopped. It was me 20 years earlier, standing in a small, cluttered antique shop. The air was heavy with dust and old memories, tangled with the sweet scent of faded wood. I lost my breath. How could she be here? She stood behind the counter, searching for something in a metallic drawer. Her hair was tousled, just like before, those cascading curls that I once adored. My palms felt clammy. I was sure my gaze was a magnet, pulling in her attention. But all I could do was watch, paralyzed by a blend of shock and nostalgia. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice a soothing melody that sent waves of emotion crashing over me. That soft lilt struck chords deep inside. Every word felt laced with meaning. Every detail felt unreasonably familiar. What were the chances? I'd seen her silhouette in dreams, heard her laughter echoing through old photographs. But now here she was alive, breathing, a ghost made flesh. I needed to know. I stepped closer, the wooden floor creaking beneath my weight. My heart raced, thumping painfully against my chest. The cluttered shelves around us watched closely, as if they understood the magnitude of this moment. I was lost in her eyes, those deep pools that once held my secrets and fears. "Are you?" I hesitated, my voice trembling. "Are you Mary?" The question hung in the air, heavy and fraught. Her face shifted. Confusion flickered. "No, I'm not." But then something delicate passed over her features, almost like recognition. Did she feel it too? The tension felt electric, crackling between us like lightning seeking a ground in that instant, a memory surged to life, our last argument. The tears, the heartbreak, the empty house when she walked away. I had been left with echoes of love, now twisted with regret. "I didn't think I thought I'd never see you again," I murmured, fighting against the surge of emotions clawing at my chest. The silence around us was deafening. She blinked, looking almost like she was searching through me. I wasn't the only one with secrets. I could feel it. I could feel the weight of years bear against us. What had she been through? What I missed? "Why are you here?" I finally forced out. The question cut like glass, sharp against my tongue. She took a step back. Her eyes glinted with something darker. Was it fear? Regret? I saw her fingers tremble slightly. "It's complicated," she whispered. At that moment, an unexpected crash broke the spell. A shelf tipped over, sending trinkets scattering across the floor. Both of us jolted, the reality of our surroundings crashing back in. I glanced back at the mess, then returned to her face. But she was already walking away, leaving me standing there amidst a whirlwind of chaos, the tinkle of shattered glass mimicking the shattering of my hopes. What just happened? Was she really back? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The moment she disappeared into the back room, the air felt heavy with unresolved tension. I stood frozen, staring at the chaos of broken memories scattered across the floor, each shard glinting like a regret I couldn't quite grasp. My pulse roared in my ears, drowning out the hum of the antique shop as sanctuary turned battlefield. Why had I let her walk away? A part of me wanted to chase after her and demand answers, to tear away the years that had accumulated like dust on forgotten furniture. But another part of me cowered at the thought of what I might find lurking in her responses. The fear of the unknown felt like a dark shadow, stretching ominously over everything I wished to resurrect. With a shaky breath, I knelt to gather the shattered pieces, my fingers brushing against the jagged edges. The cuts stung but reminded me that I was alive, that somehow, here in this place, Mary had resurfaced, an impossible flicker of hope amidst a lifetime of ache. As I collected the pieces, I could feel the warmth of the sun creeping in through the dusty windows, illuminating the shop with a golden glow, as if even the universe was urging me to reach out for her once again. "Need a hand?" A voice broke through my reverie. I looked up to find an elderly man standing beside me, a gentle smile creasing the weathered lines of his face. He knelt down, his own hand surprisingly steady as he helped me gather the remnants of my memories. "Thanks," I managed to reply, though my mind was still tangled in the whirlwind of emotions Mary had dragged back into my life. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said lightly, though his eyes held a depth that suggested he understood loss more intimately than one might expect. "Sometimes, when you encounter someone from the past, it feels just like that." I nodded, unable to fully articulate my feelings. "It's complicated." "Ah, love usually is," he chuckled softly. "But it's also worth fighting for, don't you think?" His words hung in the air, echoing through my mind. "What if the person you're fighting for doesn't want to be found?" I murmured, searching his eyes for any hint of knowledge or wisdom. "Then maybe it's time to find out. This life is too fleeting to dwell on what-ifs," he replied, his gaze unwavering. "Sometimes you have to take the plunge." His encouragement ignited a flicker of courage within me. As the last piece of glass found its place in the thickened silence, I stood up and scanned the room for Mary. The back of the shop was oddly quiet, the shimmering air thick with anticipation. "Excuse me," I said to the elderly man, my voice stronger now, as I took a step toward the back. "I need to talk to her." "Go on then," he said, his smile warm and reassuring. "You never know what you might uncover." With determined steps, I crossed the threshold into the dim light of the back room. Rows of dusty furniture and forgotten treasures lined the walls, but all I could think about was her. Every creak of the floorboards announced my presence, stirring the shadows that danced along the edges of the room. "Mary?" I called out softly, my voice barely above a whisper. "Could you give me a moment?" Her voice came back, tinged with an emotion that sent a rush of apprehension through my veins. "I can't just walk away," I replied, try to sound more confident than I felt. "I need to understand what's happening between us." The silence was heavy, stretching out like a rubber band plucked tight. Finally, she stepped into view, her face half hidden by the light filtering through dusty windows. My heart twisted at the sight. She looked almost the same, yet so changed, carrying its own weight of experiences I'd never been a part of. "I don't know if I can explain," she began, her voice quivering. "I didn't expect to see you here, not after everything." "Neither did I confessed, stepping closer. "But there is something that pulls me towards you. I can't just let you go again without knowing why you're here." Her eyes flared with a hint of fear, but she held my gaze. "You should let go. It's better that way." "Is it?" I asked, yearning. "To connect. Because I've spent years letting go, and it never felt right. It felt like fraying, like losing parts of myself." She flinched at my words, and it felt as though the world around us faded away, leaving just the two of us standing on the precipice of everything we once were. But then, her shoulders slumped, and she glanced away, almost as if she were preparing to flee once again. "Maybe it's for the best," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "You don't know what you're asking for." Before I could respond, the shop bell chimed, and a new customer walked in, dragging us both back to reality. Mary tensed, a shadow crossing her face. "I have to help them," she said abruptly and took a step back. Her expression suddenly closed off. "I can't do this right now." "Wait," I pleaded, reaching out. "You can't just—" But she was already turning away, her hand brushing against a shelf, sending a small trinket tumbling to the ground. It shattered with a sound that echoed through the sudden silence, the tiny pieces sprawling out so much like the fragments of my hope. As her figure melted into the bustle of the shop, a wave of despair washed over me. Had I really just lost her again? A flash of movement caught my eye as I bent to pick up the pieces. Something glinted among the wreckage, a small, silver key. My breath caught as I realized the significance of its design. The intricate swirl resembled a symbol I once knew well. The key to her heart. It felt like it had felt wrong in that moment, as if it held a deeper mystery that had yet to be revealed. My fingers closed around it as I rose, heart racing at the weight of what I now held. Did this indicate a door I hadn't known existed, a path to understanding what had gone untold? Or was it just another elusive echo of our past, taunting me at every turn? Regardless, I knew I couldn't allow time to slip away again. As I stood there, the bell chiming softly behind me, I felt the pull of adventure and heartbreak conjoin within me. One thing was crystal clear: whatever lay ahead would prove to be unlike anything I had yet encountered. The key felt cold and heavy in my palm, a tangible representation of all the darkness and light that chased me in circles. I stood in the cluttered back room of the antique shop, staring at the fragments strewn about the floor like broken dreams. It was absurd, really, how something so small could simultaneously instill courage and dread within me. The shop bell chimed again, and I turned my gaze from the scattering of memories and turned toward the main room. It hummed with life and chatter, contrasting sharply with the emotional solitude I'd just shared with Mary. I had to breathe, to think, to understand this sudden cascade of emotions and fears that threatened to consume me. My heart was in turmoil, pounding along with the rhythm of the bustling shop as I walked back to where patrons examined dusty relics. They were blissfully unaware of the storm that raged within me, a tempest sparked by the sight of her. I glanced around, searching for any sign of Mary, but all I found were strangers admiring antiques, oblivious to the thread of fate that had woven its way into the fabric of my and Mary's past. The elderly man who had helped me was now engrossed in a conversation with a middle-aged couple near an ornate mirror. And then, amid the sea of unfamiliar faces, a familiar one struck me. A woman stood by a display of vintage jewelry, her back turned towards me. My stomach lurched. Was it possible? I took cautious steps, each heartbeat echoing in my ears as I approached. She turned slightly to the side, enough for me to glimpse her profile. My breath caught in my throat as the sun caught her hair, illuminating her features. It was uncanny. The resemblance was not just striking, it was haunting. This woman was a mirror, reflecting the face of my past. "Excuse me," I stammered, half terrified of what I was about to conclude. "Have we met before?" She turned fully toward me, and when she did, it was as if a door had swung open to reveal a flood of memories I tried so hard to restrain. Her eyes were wide, filled with surprise, but also a flicker of recognition. "I don't think so," she replied, her voice soft yet uncertain. "But I get that a lot." "Your resemblance is uncanny," I began, unable to keep the incredulity from my voice. "You look just like my ex-wife." The moment hung thick in the air, as if suspended by the weight of unspoken words. "Ex-wife?" she echoed carefully, an edge of hesitancy creeping in. There was something more in her gaze, a depth of melancholy that resonated with the pieces of my heart still swirling with Mary's departure. "Yeah," I confessed, wondering if the connection was merely superficial or something darker, intricately woven into the tapestry of fate itself. Well, she walked away recently, and I never really understood why." "I'm sorry to hear that," she said, her smile faltering for a moment. "Relationships can be complicated." "Complicated doesn't even begin to cover it," I replied, the desperation evident in my voice. "I thought I was over at her, but seeing you just brought it all back." "I don't know why." The woman nodded slowly, her eyes searching mine as if trying to decipher some hidden truth. "Sometimes we see reflections of our past in the most unexpected places," she said. "Maybe it's the universe's way of making us confront what we've been avoiding." Her words struck deep, ripping open tender wounds I thought had scabbed over. Memories of laughter, love, and loss cascaded through my mind, each one a reminder of what I had lost. And as I stood there, ensnared by a strange sense of déjà vu, I couldn't help but feel the weight of my own longings colliding with the likelihood of new beginnings or a further entanglement with unresolved pain. Just as I was about to pour my heart into her ears, the shop bell rang again, cutting through the bubble of intimacy our conversation had created. I turned to see Mary, standing just beyond the threshold, eyes wide with surprise as she registered the scene before her. The air thickened with tension. Mary's gaze turned piercing, landing on the woman beside me, lingering with confusion and anxiety. I felt as if a fissure had opened beneath me, the ground beneath becoming unstable, teetering on the brink of catastrophe. "Wait," Mary said, her voice trembling as she stepped inside. "What's going on here?" I stuttered, completely at a loss for words as I glanced from one woman to the other. The air crackled with unspoken questions and buried feelings erupting to the surface, threatening a devastating showdown of pasts colliding and secrets unraveling. That I felt the key in my pocket, a reminder of the journey that awaited me if I dared to unlock the paths before us. But as the confusion and tension swirled, I wasn't sure if I was ready to confront the intricate web of relationships, choices, and long-lost connections that threatened to drag us all into turmoil. This time, however, I had to press forward. I faced Mary, my heart in my throat. "I wanted to talk, Mary," I said firmly, stepping towards her, ignoring the mirror standing beside me, the stranger who felt too eerily familiar. "We need to talk." And as I stood there, the walls we had built around our fears felt ready to collapse. Would we find the courage to unearth the truth hidden beneath our facades, or will we simply watch our lives unravel with every hesitant word? The atmosphere in the shop shifted as the weight of my words hung in the air, a fragile reminder of everything we had been tiptoeing around. Mary's features flickered with confusion, hurt, and a trace of anger that felt as sharp as the broken shards littering the floor. I could sense the brimming storm in her eyes, filled with emotions I had both built up and avoided for too long. "Talk," she echoed, inching closer, yet keeping a thin veil of distance between us. "About what? About her?" Her finger pointed imperceptibly at the woman beside me, filled with both anxiety and defiance. "What do you even have to say?" My chest tightened, battling a mixture of guilt and urgency, as if I held all the answers but knew that finding them now would only invite chaos. "Mary," I began softly, the familiarity of her name forming a wreath of memories spilling forth. "I wish I could explain everything. I never meant for you to see this." I gestured toward the woman, who stood with an expression of palpable sympathy, her presence now weighing heavily like an anchor tethering me to truths I wasn't ready to face. "I didn't expect to see you here, and certainly not like this," Mary said, her voice dropping an octave, infused with a simmering pain that almost made me step back. "You think this is easy? I thought we had moved on from this, from us." "I haven't moved on, Mary," I admitted, startled by the revelation that had slipped through my lips. "Not really." And when I saw her, my words tangled in my throat, causing frustration to flare. "It's just she feels like a part of something I thought was long gone, something I buried and tried to forget." "I can't believe you would compare me to her." Mary shot back, edging away as if the very mention of my past was a place she refused to trespass. "Have you even tried to understand why I left? Why I needed space?" I remembered the nights weighed down by the silence that hung between us, the unanswered questions that had withered in the absence of conversation, and now a single encounter threatened to plunge everything back into darkness. "No, I didn't I conceded. I was so caught up in my own confusion, thinking I could just let you walk away without grasping what it meant to truly face the reason behind it all." A small gasp escaped the woman beside me as she took a seat at the edge of the nearby table, tugging absent-mindedly at the jewelry on display. Instinctively, I wanted to correct our strange dynamic. Her mere existence was enough to ignite flames between Mary and me, dragging our long-buried grievances into the light. But maybe that was necessary. A purging of the past was long overdue. "I don't know what you still want," Mary murmured, her eyes glistening like the trinkets in the shop, reflecting all that had been said but remained unspoken. "It feels impossible to go back." "Maybe we're not meant to go back," I said quietly. "But we can't keep pretending that everything is fine." If her likeness to your past brings all this back, then let it be our chance to unravel it together or not at all. I stepped closer, and for a heartbeat, our eyes locked, the storm raging unyieldingly as hope flickered faintly in the wreckage of our past. Perhaps for every moment of despair, there existed a sliver of light waiting to illuminate our path. But still, uncertainty bound us like heavy chains. Just then, the woman rose, stepping between us, though it felt as if she bridged the chasm of our unfinished dialogue. "I don't mean to intrude, but I sense a lot of pain here," she said, her voice soft yet commanding. "Perhaps confronting the echoes of your past is the first step toward healing." Mary's brow furrowed, a myriad of emotions washing over her expression. "Who are you, really?" she asked, the sharpness in her tone replacing anger with vulnerability. She hesitated, as if weighing her own emotions against the turmoil that had enveloped us. "My name is Julia," she offered finally, "and I've seen things in all my years that might be able to help." I didn't understand how a stranger could resonate with my emotional battlefield, yet everything about the way she spoke tethered us to a broader truth. But before I could ask for aid, the shop bell chimed yet again, and in strode a man with a dark past who had been absent from my life but always lingered in my mind. It was David Mary's older brother, and the last person I ever thought would walk through those doors after everything that had transpired. His gaze darted from me to Mary, a storm of curiosity swirling within his dark eyes, and suddenly the fragile balance we had built teetered on the precipice of chaos. "What's happening here?" he demanded, crossing his arms as if guarding against the world. It suddenly felt as if all the components of our fractured lives were colliding in one small room. In that moment, I knew without doubt that what began as an endeavor to move forward had transformed into a web of unresolved conflict, emotions, and unforeseen connections. As I stood wedged between a past that refused to let go and a present fraught with potential ruin, I grasped the key tighter in my hand, ready to confront the revelations that awaited us all. The moment David stepped into the shop, the air thickened with tension, much like the charged atmosphere before a storm. I felt the weight of uncounted histories hanging in the balance, as if the universe had conspired to bring us all together in a twisted reunion. The small shop, usually filled with warmth and chatter, turned into a courtroom where past grievances were now on trial. "Not this," Mary repeated under her breath, her expression crumbling. "Not now, not like this." She turned slightly away, wrestling with a whirlpool of hurt and anger that seemed to boil just beneath her skin. I reached out instinctively, but she flinched as though my touch could ignite the wildfires of our shared torment. "David," I managed, feeling the tremor in my voice. "This isn't what?" He interrupted, his voice a low growl. "Isn't what it looks like." He scanned our faces, searching for the puzzle pieces that had eluded him. "Why is Mary here? Why are you both here together?" Mary closed her eyes as if bracing for the inevitable storm, and I could see, in that fleeting moment, every memory telling her to run. David never made anything easy. He had a way of shrouding every interaction in shadows cast by our shared past. "Can't you see we're trying to have a conversation?" I snapped, suddenly fueled by a surge of protectiveness for her, for us. "Your sister has her own life, her own choices to make. She's barely been able to walk out the door since you left her." David's voice echoed, loud enough to silence the quiet murmurs from the shop's corners. "So, I think I have a right to know what is happening. Maybe if you had been there for her, this wouldn't be an issue at all." I shouted back, standing my ground, even as I felt Mary silently pleading for the fight to end. A cascade of emotions washed over us: sadness, regrets, resentments, all of them vivid and raw. Julia remained an unassuming presence nearby, almost ethereal, as the tension escalated between David and I. It was as if she were the eye of our storm, her calmness an anchor amidst our fracturing realities. "We need to talk, all of us," she suggested gently, her voice smooth and steady. "Why do you care?" David shot back, narrowing his eyes at her. "You don't know any of us or the damage done here." He gestured broadly, his emotional upheaval coloring the air around us. "I may not know the details," she replied, undeterred by his hostility. "But I see that we're all here on the same ship, whether we like it or not. We're battling our demons, dancing around the ghosts of what was. We'll only end up sinking if we don't confront our fears together." "It's easy for you to say," Mary murmured, her voice breaking slightly. "You don't have the kind of wounds we have." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I have my own wounds," Julia replied simply, her gaze steady and compassionate. "We all carry them in some way. The scars we bear tell our stories. Sometimes they bind us, and sometimes they push us forward." In that moment, I saw something begin to shift in Mary's demeanor, a flicker of acceptance, or perhaps curiosity. The realization that maybe, just maybe, there could be a path to healing, however rough it might be, was taking root. But that fragile moment of hope was quickly crushed again by David's arrival. "Let us focus on the real issue. You think you could just waltz back into Mary's life, huh?" He turned to me, wounded but resolute. "You think all is forgotten just because this woman looks like—" His voice trailed off as the words hung heavily between us, a chasm built from love, loss, and betrayal. "There's more to this than just her appearance," I defended Julia, sensing the gathering storm. "This isn't a game, David. The last thing I want is to hurt Mary again. But her presence has forced us to address things we've ignored for too long." For a moment, David's expression softened, flickering with uncertainty. And then, at that precise moment, the shop bell chimed again, a sharp sound cutting through the charged atmosphere like a knife slicing incandescent tension. An elderly woman stepped in, carrying a basket, filled with vibrant flowers, her presence bringing a strange kind of warmth that enveloped us all. "Sorry to interrupt," she said gently, her voice carrying the soothing echo of long-forgotten kindness. "I was just looking for a quiet place. It seems there's a storm brewing here, and perhaps I could help." I always believed that flowers make everything just a bit brighter. I stared at her in disbelief, but the winds of change were beginning to shift, testing the bonds of our tangled web. Just when I was about to dismiss her intrusion, I caught a glimpse of Mary, her expression transitioning from stony silence to genuine intrigue at the flowers. Suddenly, an unexpected voice broke through the tension. "That's what she wanted." Julia moved closer to the woman, her tone empathetic. "My mother used to bring flowers whenever she sensed a storm at home." The elderly woman nodded knowingly and gestured toward Mary, one flower held delicately in her hands. "These bright blooms remind us that even in the darkest times, there is always the potential for beauty, for new beginnings. You dear deserve that." As Mary hesitated, reaching slowly toward the flower, I felt the severity of what might have been shifting ever so slightly. But before we could grasp that fragile thread of hope that flickered in the corner of despair, David's phone buzzed deeply in his pocket, interrupting the fragile restoration of warmth. As he glanced at the screen, his eyes darkened, surprise morphing into fear. "It can't be not now." His voice trembled as he pulled away, a heavy shadow overtaking his features as he stepped outside, momentarily leaving us in a fragile balance of possibilities, once again teetering on the edge of uncertainty. And in that quiet space, as the old woman continued to chat softly with Julia about flowers and healing, I felt the unseen thread between Mary and me tighten, readying itself for whatever lay ahead, because we were far from done. The new revelation that had seemingly emerged was a mere prelude to the darker shadows lurking just out of reach, and I feared they were about to surface at any moment. The silence in the shop felt heavy after David's abrupt departure, leaving trails of anxiety in his wake. I stole a glance at Mary, whose face was pale, reflecting her inner turmoil. Her breath came in soft, shallow waves, as though she were attempting to contain the storm brewing within her. The flower the elderly woman offered seemed to pulse in the space between us, a fragile symbol of resilience against the shadow of what once was. "It's okay, Mary," I murmured, desperate to reach her. "You don't need to decide anything right now." But my words felt hollow, the tension still crackling in the air like static electricity. Would she believe that? Would I? The elderly woman continued her gentle conversation with Julia, who appeared remarkably at ease, her demeanor a soothing balm amidst the chaos. I watched as the two of them hovered over the flowers like a pair of ethereal spirits weaving comfort. Yet, Mary's gaze remained locked on the door through which David had just exited, her profile hardening with each passing second. "Do you think he'll be okay?" she asked quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. He looked panicked. "I don't know," I admitted, the uncertainty settling like sediment in my stomach. "But right now, I think we need to focus on us, not him." Mary finally turned to me, the desperation in her eyes morphing into something deeper. "Us? Can you even call it that after everything?" A tremble threaded its way through her words, revealing the painful echoes of our shared past. The distance between us felt like a chasm forged by time and hurt, but here we were, reaching out as if across a great divide. Before I could respond, the bell chimed again, announcing the arrival of yet another figure. My heart skipped a beat as I recognized the disheveled form rushing through the door. David, panting slightly, stormed back inside, eyes ablaze with urgency. He began, but the intensity of his gaze found Mary first. "I need to know if she said anything to you." Mary's expression shifted, fading from curiosity to disbelief as she stood taller, defensive. "Who are you talking about?" David hesitated, jaw clenching as waves of emotion flickered across his face. "The woman who called. My mom. She was in an accident," and they're saying his voice trailed off, dread curling around the silence. Mary's brows knit together, confusion reigning for just a moment before that familiar flicker of empathy crossed her features. "Oh, David, I'm sorry." But the momentary warmth between them detonated quickly. "It's my fault," he confessed, panic rising in his tone. "If I'd just been there more, maybe she wouldn't have gotten in that car." The air grew thick with the raw ache of guilt and regret that enveloped David, wrapping around us like invisible chains. I wanted to shield Mary from the fallout of his emotional collapse, to pull her away from this spiraling confrontation. Julia, sensing the shift, bravely approached David. "This isn't the time to lay blame," she said firmly, her tone still gentle. "You need to contact the hospital and figure out what is going on." "What do you know about timing?" David shot back, his voice rising again, creating fractures in the tentative peace that hovered around us. I could see Mary tensing as David's pain cut deeper, radiating his despair outward like a dark cloud. "Enough," I interjected, stepping forward. "We can't allow this to spiral into yet another battle. Your family matters more than unresolved history right now." That seemed to give him pause, the rage flooding his features exchanging for something more fragile: remorse, regret, and burgeoning vulnerability. It was like watching storm clouds briefly dissipate to reveal a sliver of blue sky. But before he could speak, a sudden, undeniable spark caught my attention. The elderly woman, who had been quietly observing this exchange, raised her voice gently. "The past can haunt us, children, but it's never too late to forge a new path. Find a kindness in this moment." Her words hung in the air, stirring Mary's heart. I watched as she seemed to absorb them, a softening in her posture. "David, if this is about family," but even before she could finish her sentence, a series of frantic notifications pinged on David's phone, pulling his attention away from us once again. A vortex of emotions whipped through him as he stared at the screen, his body rigid with anxiety. "What is it?" I asked, feeling the tension reemerge. More messages from the hospital, something about complications. His voice faltered, eyes wide as the weight of the implication crashed over him. "I need to go. Now." Mary reached for him, her face filled with genuine concern, but he stepped back, shaking his head. "I can't stay here. I need to go." And just like that, he was gone again, ushered out of the door by a sudden urgency that only deepened the fractures now lining our fragile bonds. As silence enveloped us once more, Mary turned to me, her eyes glistening with tears that threatened to spill over. "I don't know how to navigate this," she whispered, her vulnerability a raw opening. It feels like everything is falling apart, and I didn't even know it's never going to be easy, Mary, I replied, my heart aching for her strife. Life is messy, and sometimes we need to find strength where we least expect it. A long moment passed, charged with emotions, hope, and despair. As the world outside blurred with the weight of uncertainty, I took a steady breath, feeling that we were tiptoeing on the edge of something monumental, a fragile bridge we had both been too afraid to cross. But before I could voice that revelation, the door opened one last time. The air chilled as a sharp figure stepped in, a looming shadow carrying a parcel that seemed to radiate all of the unease that had followed us thus far. "Is this the right place?" the stranger asked, holding out the package toward us, my heart racing as the name on the label came into view, stark and ominous. I.T. read, "To Mary from the past." And in that moment, I realized that what we sought to heal might very well unravel everything we thought we knew. The air felt dense with anticipation as I stared at the package in the stranger's hand, confusion wrapping around us like a fog. Mary's eyes darted between the box and me, her breathing catching in her throat. "From the past?" she murmured, the confusion in her voice palpable. "Yes," the stranger replied, an edge of uncertainty flaring in their gaze. "I was told to deliver this here. I thought it might help." "What is it?" I pressed, daring my own heart to steady as I witnessed Mary's growing fear. She took a slow step back, her hands pressed against the work table like it was her last anchor amidst a storm. "I don't know," the stranger admitted, voice low, almost trembling. "I just deliver them. It's a collection of items." "Items? From who?" This was spiraling too quickly, threatening to unravel everything we had tried to hold together. There was a pause as the stranger hesitated, glancing down at the package. "For Mary S.X., she's the one who sent it." A heavy silence fell, the revelation crashing against us like a tidal wave. Mary's breath hitched, her eyes wide with disbelief. I felt a cold shiver dance down my spine. Her ex-wife? I had heard fragments of that story, whispers of love lost and the tension that lingered, but had never anticipated that this moment would bring her ghost back to life. "Why now?" Mary whispered, anguish spilling across her expression. "Why after all this time?" "I can't say," the stranger said gently, taking a step back. "But I can't deny that it felt different when I picked this up, like it weighed more than what was inside." A singular thought clawed at my mind. Did this package hold the answers to the questions we had buried deep within us? Or would it stir up the very fears we were trying to escape from? Mary stood frozen, as if time had caught up with her in that single frame, measuring the past with the present. I can't just open it. Maybe it's not about opening it, but facing what's inside you first, the stranger said softly, as if sensing her turmoil. "It's just a box you get to choose what happens next." A thread of hope weaved itself into the heavy air as those words settled in, a gentle nudge in a moment that felt taut with dread. I wanted to help, to encourage, to pull her back from the brink of panic, but I held my breath, allowing her space to make her own decision. In that moment of indecision, a flicker of movement caught my eye from outside the window. David was back, his expression fraught with urgency, but this time he wasn't alone. A paramedic stood beside him, a strong figure of authority, a stark contrast to the weight of despair hanging over us. "What is going on?" David exclaimed, stepping inside with quick strides, his breath ragged, as if he had been running in circles, searching for an answer to his tumult. His eyes found Mary, momentarily wide with shock, and then they landed on the package. "Is that?" "I don't know," Mary replied, her voice trembling as she tried to contain her voice, each word heavy with 1,000 unspoken fears. "But it's from my past, from my ex Mary, the first M, just trying to figure this out." "Okay," David said, frustration tinged with concern seeping through. "We can't keep going around in circles. You need to make a decision." The paramedic stepped forward, his presence commanding, yet oddly calming. It's understandable to be overwhelmed in a moment like this. But confronting past hurts often opens doors to healing. "But what if it only tears me apart?" Mary pressed, trembling. We won't let that happen. I interjected, my voice steadier than I felt. You're not alone. You have us, David, Julia, and me. We can face anything together. As I spoke, I saw a flicker of determination cross David's features. Maybe he had finally begun to understand that the chaos of their shared history didn't define them, it merely colored their journey. Mary, he said softly, his voice working to bridge the distance between them. You have to let us and let me in. You don't have to carry this alone. Time stretched as each heartbeat echoed in my ears, tension vibrating in the space as Mary looked. Between us, her past colliding with her present, the weight of what was and what could be resting heavy on her shoulders. I could see the conflict etched deep within her, a battle raging between fear and the flicker of hope ignited by our presence. The resolution to it sparked like electricity, filling the air with unspoken possibility. Open it, the stranger urged, taking a step closer, still holding the package like a talisman. Only you can choose whether the past will be a wound or a lesson. It's in your hands. As Mary reached out to take the box, the world outside trembled as thunder rolled across the sky, flashes of light punctuating the gloom. The moment felt heavy and alive, teetering on the brink of what could be a transformation. But just as her fingers brushed against the package, a loud crash echoed from outside, pulling our attention. The tension snapped and panic flooded the room as David rushed to the window, horror painting his features. It's happening again, he shouted, his panic spiraling. And although I didn't fully understand what he meant, I sensed the shift in the atmosphere, the shadows closing in as another wave of their collective past surged forward. Suddenly, the choice of whether to embrace or flee from the past felt even more urgent. As Mary stood frozen, the fragile thread of hope against the storm surrounding us hung by a thread. And in that moment, the question loomed heavily, could we seize the opportunity to piece together the fragments of our lives, or would we be swept away by the darkness that threatened to engulf us? The shadows outside thickened, twisting like serpents against the windows as David's words echoed through the room, stirring a chaos inside me that mirrored the brewing storm. It's happening again. The gravity of those words pulled us all into an unholy silence, each heartbeat echoing like a distant thunderclap. Mary's hand hovered above the package, trembling, her breath hitching as she strained to catch a glimpse of the unseen threat outside. It felt as if a dark entity was lurking just beyond the threshold, darkening the door of her past that had only just begun to crack open in front of us. What do you mean? What is happening again? I asked, my heart racing as visions of past traumas clashed with the hope that had momentarily glinted in Mary's eyes, threatening to extinguish it. I thought we had dealt with it. David whispered more to himself than to us. Panic etched deeply into his brow. I thought it was finally over. What's going on? I pressed, needing to break the cycle of despair clinging to the air. David turned, his eyes wide, revealing shadows of old wounds I hadn't known he carried. The tremors, he said slowly. I thought they'd stopped. They've been quiet for so long. Mary's expression flickered through fear, confusion, and a dawning realization she had felt them too, but had written them off as echoes of a haunted past. But there was something more visceral brewing beneath the surface of everything we had been navigating. They're not just tremors, I murmured, the weight of our collective unease pressing down on me. What if they're coming back to reclaim what was lost? The stranger, who had previously been a ghostly figure hovering in the shadows, stepped forward, their face tense with understanding. There is something more powerful at play. Buried history often surfaces, demanding to be confronted. Mary's eyes searched the stranger's face, something flickering in them that I couldn't fully grasp, a thread of understanding, or perhaps a recognition of her own power in this moment. What do I do? Open it, the stranger repeated softly, but their voice carried the weight of a choice. Whatever lies within could be the key to creating a new pathway, one that leads away from the cycle of pain. As thunder boomed overhead, the wind lashed against the windows, rattling us in our own skin. Mary S. resolve began to crystallize, but a flicker of doubt tried to root itself in her mind. What if I can't handle what's inside? You won't know until you try, David urged, stepping closer, the distance between them a chasm he longed to cross. We're here with you. Whatever you find, we will face it together. Tears brimmed in Mary S.'s eyes as the fear and hope tumbled together in a dizzying dance, and I reached for her hand, linking our fates in that brief moment of camaraderie. The package that lay between us felt more than just a box. It was a threshold, trembling with pieces of the past that needed to be stitched into the fabric of our lives. Perhaps it was in those raw moments of vulnerability that we could rewrite our stories and try to break free from the chains that bound us. Every narrative needs confrontation, needs a reckoning with what has been swept under the rug. But just as Mary began to shift her fingers toward the box, a scream sliced through the air from outside, a woman's voice shrieking in despair, sharp enough to pierce through the storm as howls. Our hearts froze as fear rippled through the room, the energy shifting from tentative to instinctual. What was that? I breathed out, fear gripping my insides. David darted to the window, staring into the chaos beyond as his face drained of color. Oh no, it can't be not her. Who? Mary S.'s voice cracked, inching closer to the window, brimming with hesitation and terror. Cassie, he spat, disbelief mingling with adrenaline-fueled concern. I thought she left town. She was supposed to be safe. Safe from what? Mary S.'s gaze was frantic, flickering between the storm outside and the package on the table that had suddenly become a ticking time bomb. David S.'s breath was rasping through clenched teeth as he grappled with his emotions, caught between his concern for Cassie and the weight of Mary S.'s unresolved past. We need to help her, he finally managed, determination hardening his voice. No. Mary S.'s voice rose sharply, paralyzing us all in our tracks, fear pinching her expression as she weighed the two powerful entities flaring to life within her. The urge to retreat into the numbness of her past and the insistent tug of responsibility. If it's happening again, I can't face both. I don't know if I can handle this. The shadows outside pulsed and twisted, the storm inky and thick, a feral force hungry for chaos. In that moment of inevitable confrontation, I saw the path before us stretch into jagged forks, each route as foreboding as the last. David reached for Mary, desperate to ground her. You have to choose. You can't run from this. Mary held the box with trembling hands. It felt heavier than before, as if the weight of the past bore down on her, suffocating. What if opening it unleashes something dark and terrible? What if it frees you from it? The stranger's voice was a soft yet firm counter, echoing the hope that David had endeavored to kindle. Sometimes facing the past is the only way forward. Time hung between us, heavy and heavy-laden with the uncertainty of our next steps. The scream outside morphed into chaos, other voices rising, cries of confusion and fear punctuating the fragile silence clinging to our decisions. Mary paused, every scar etched on her skin flaring, whispering reminders of what was lost and what might be reborn. As she weighed her options, a chill snaked down my spine, the realization dawning on me that the true confrontation was not only with her ex-wife or the items inside the box, but with her own shadows, her fears. Mary, I nudged softly, taking a half-step forward, trying to rally whatever resolve I saw flickering dimly in her gaze. We're here. No matter what that box contains, it's yours to open. Your strength is greater than you realize. But before she could respond, another crash reverberated through the air, sharp and startling. With a jolt, we turned to the window, and what lay outside cast everything we had hoped for into stark relief. Figures cloaked in darkness, moving through the fog, their intentions hazy but ominous. In an instant, I understood this was only the beginning of a reckoning, and the past was roaring back to claim its due, a storm of memories and choices converging toward a new and perilous truth. Mary's breath caught again, fear replacing the glimmer of hope as uncertainty began to cloud her resolve. Once more, what if I don't want to remember? But even as she asked that question, I felt the weight of her indecision bleeding into the atmosphere, threatening to drown us. As the dark figures drew closer, the truth loomed. Whatever lay within the package was about to be irrevocably intertwined with everything that was to come. And just like that, in the clutches of a new realization, we stood on the precipice, hanging between the past that begged our attention and the terrifying future that lay waiting for us to decide, an impending storm that promised to sweep away everything in its path. "Please," Mary's voice broke as her fingers finally curled around the box, torn between fear and the desperate need for release, the choice teetering on the edge of hope and despair. As she prepared to face the chaos in her heart, I couldn't shake the fear that whatever lay inside and outside would converge with consequences none of us could foresee. The air in the room thickened, tension winding tighter with every passing moment as Mary clutched the package like a lifeline, her fingers trembling and hesitant. The storm roared outside, masking the tumult brewing within her heart, a reflection of the chaos, threatening to break down every door she had carefully locked. "Mary, you have to make a choice," David urged, his voice filled with a mix of pleading and urgency. "We're with you, but you cannot stand still. We need to know what's inside that box." Another crash echoed through the chaos outside, the sound of the world unraveling. I caught myself stealing a glance at the window where the silhouettes pressed against the storm, an unsettling reminder of the fears that stalked us. Each figure was a manifestation of Mary's past, stretching dangerously into her present. With a deep breath that seemed to resonate with the storm, Mary's eyes darted from the box to the window. The storm outside mirrored the tempest inside her. The scream she had heard minutes ago echoed in her ear, a warning, or perhaps a beckoning call to confront the demons she'd long kept at bay. "Please." The whisper escaped her lips, so soft it was nearly drowned out by the howling wind. "I don't know if I can face this again. Remember the last time?" I gently pushed, recalling the painful memories that had shaped our paths. "We were together. You weren't alone then, and you're not alone now." At that moment, a flash of lightning illuminated the room. For just an instant, I saw something shift in Mary's expression, a fleeting spark of determination igniting amidst the panic. But it flickered quickly, extinguished by a tidal wave of self-doubt. "I'm scared," she finally admitted, her voice trembling as the rawness of her confession filled the space between us. "What if what's inside is too much? What if I can't handle it? What if it changes everything once more?" The stranger, who had remained silent, observing with an intensity that felt both comforting and intense, stepped forward again. Overcoming fear requires vulnerability. Sometimes the past is scarier than what lies ahead, an unknown you have the power to shape. Their words hung in the air like wisps of forgotten dreams, coaxing Mary to confront everything she had buried within herself. The haunting memories of her ex-wife, the swirling regrets, and the lingering wounds felt enormous, insurmountable. As she weighed the options, shouting erupted outside voices of desperation spiraling like the wind, layering the room with a palpable dread that encased us all. "I can't," Mary finally said, her voice a fractured note. "I don't want to see her. I don't want to remember." But deeper down, her heart whispered a truth she could no longer hide from the shadow of her past. In that moment, the weight of her indecision was evident, the past pressing down, threatening to crush her spirit. What if opening the box reveals something not meant for my eyes? What if it makes me face everything again? Mary's eyes showed raw vulnerability as she looked at David, her friend, her anchor. What if it means losing everything I've just begun to build? "No matter what's in there, it can never overshadow your journey," David said, determination thick in every emotion he wore on his sleeve. "It only serves to make us stronger, to help us move forward. Think of it as a puzzle piece you've left behind." Her breath hitched as she broke the momentary connection, focusing on the box that now seemed alive, thrumming with the echoes of memories long past. She took a step back, and just as she did, the rain poured down in torrents, a fierce downpour that enveloped the world outside. What if it brings her back? She whispered, and I could feel the weight of those words lifting the corners of dread beneath the surface. What if it unleashes something I can never contain? Before I could respond, a loud thump against the door jolted us, shattering the heavy atmosphere. The figures outside blurred against the storm-esque gale, desperate and relentless, their intent unknown. Mary gasped, her face losing color as the shadows loomed larger. "Mary, we can't just stand here. We need to figure this out," I urged, but my voice faltered under the oppressive weight of the dark energy that filled the room. Let's go outside," David suggested suddenly, urgency shaping his words as if something tangible in the storm called to him. "We can't ignore it. We need to see who it is. It might be more than what we ever anticipated." "No," Mary's voice rang out sharply, fear flashing in her eyes. "No, don't go out. It's dangerous." But before we could argue, another crashing sound reverberated through the door, a clear sign that whatever was outside would soon break through. Panic bubbled over, and a frightened gasp escaped Mary. With a determination that struck like the lightning outside, Mary stepped back towards the package. "I need to know," she whispered more to herself than to us, the words like a clarion call. "I have to know." Suddenly, the door burst open, wind howling in, bringing with it a figure cloaked in darkness, drenched but resolute. "Mary!" The figure yelled, desperation lacing their tone. I squinted through the rain-soaked air, heart racing, as a messenger of the past descended upon us. And the moment she stepped into view, my heart sank, face pale as recognition washed over me like a tidal wave. Standing there present and bewildering was a face I never expected to see again, but one that was destined to rewrite the narrative of all our lives. "Cassie?" Mary's voice trembled, shock paralyzing her, as where she had feared darkness. The storm had brought a long-held secret barreling towards the light. This singular face, entwined with everything that had nearly unraveled Mary, could be the start or the end, a revelation that promised to intertwine past pains and unresolved futures into an inevitable reckoning. I stood frozen in the doorway, my heart hammering wildly, pulse thrumming in my ears like a frantic drum. Cassie, Mary's ex, was back tamed by rain but fierce as ever, wild and untamed. She looked like a stray under the fury of a storm, carrying not just the weight of the precipitation, but the burden of years spent apart from Mary, years drenched in sorrow and confusion. "Cassie?" Mary's voice was thin, trembling like the leaves outside in the downpour. The name escaped her lips, couched in a mixture of warmth, trepidation, and the distant echoes of pain and love intertwined. "Mary, the first V been searching for you," Cassie said, her words wrapped tight in urgency. There's so much to explain. The air vibrated with tension as I glanced between them, witnessing a fierce, raw reunion that spiraled into an entanglement of emotions, anger, regret, love still flickering like a stubborn candle flame beneath the tempest. Before I could interject, the storm raged behind me, wind battering against the walls of the little antique shop, mirroring the roiling confusion that churned in our hearts. "I don't know if I can face it," Mary whispered, her hand unconsciously reaching towards the package on the table, a silent beckoning towards resolving the truths that had haunted her. Cassie stepped forward, her presence commanding but laced with vulnerability. "Please, let this be a moment for us. We need to talk, to peel back the layers of what happened. I never should have left like that. I've spent every day regretting it, at the mercy of my demons." Her words shot through the storm, clear yet heavy with anticipation. "For years, I thought you disappeared, left me to pick up the pieces alone," Mary said, grappling with her own grief and anger, the maelstrom of hurt clashing against the hope of resolution. "And here you are, crashing into my life again, with questions left unanswered." Cassie interjected, her voice softening. "I wish I could take back the hurt I caused, just as you need to know why I'm here now." Time slowed around us, clinging to the air like humidity. I felt my heart throb painfully as I stood simultaneously a silent witness to their unveiling and a spectator of pain I could hardly understand. I had navigated my own hall of heartbreak, and yet witnessing their history bleed out before us sent waves of sorrow washing over me, pulsing through every fiber of my being. "Don't you understand?" Mary replied, closing herself off again, bracing for another possible hurt. "You can't just walk back into my life and expect me to forgive you. There is still so much between us." "Then let us face it," Cassie urged, desperation etched into her features as the rain continued to spotlight their tumultuous reunion. "I'm here because something deep inside pushed me back to you, Mary. Something that told me there was still a chance to make things right. There it was, an opportunity threaded with the possibility of healing. Yet it dangled like an unfinished puzzle, pieces separated by years of love and loss. You think I haven't fought my own battles?" Mary's voice hardened. "You left when I needed you most. You denied me the closure I needed. Maybe that's where we both failed." Then Cassie said, stepping just a bit closer, vulnerability turning her voice fluid and soft. "I turned my back on you, and I ran away from my own hurt instead of facing it. But I can't. I want to let that happen again." Something flickered behind Mary's eyes, the chinks in her defenses showing a clearer glimmer of hope, battling with the crushing weight of resentment. "Your return, it's a cruel reminder," Mary said, her voice a whisper. "What changed? Why now?" Cassie inhaled deeply, her own memories resurfacing, memories that were intertwined with Mary's heartbeat. "Because I realized I've been haunted by the remnants of our past years that I failed to claim as part of my own story. I ran from us instead of facing what I should have. And every moment away from you has been a moment of anguish and despair. In that moment, the tension shifted, a palpable connection breathing life into the stagnant air. Between them, a flicker of understanding rooted in love and pain, now projecting hope. Is this how it starts? A collision of blurred pasts and experiences? I asked softly, stepping closer to the package that lay in the center of this emotional storm. Because maybe jars of bitterness can be emptied. The secrets that were once buried might just be the light leading you both home. Mary's gaze flitted between the package and Cassie, her breath shuddering in response to the formidable waves of emotion swirling around them. The fear of the unknown warred against the sincere desire to reclaim what had been lost. "I don't know if I can do this," she breathed out, exhaustion lining her words as she took a step back, uncertainty clinging onto her heart like a shadow. Cassie's gaze softened even more, her expression turning fierce with determination. "You don't have to go through it alone. I'm here, and I want to fight for you, for us, to reclaim what memories linger and to build something beautiful amidst the chaos." With a deeper conviction, I stepped forward, sharing the truth that had been building inside me all this time. Sometimes we need to confront the past to understand what we're ready to build for the future. "Open the package, Mary. It might be a step toward healing for all of us." Facing the storm gathered outside and within, uncertainty flickering in every shadow, Mary reached for the package resting heavily on the table. Her fingers slid against the textured surface, trembling as she hesitated. Every heartbeat echoed through the room, wrapped in the knot of anticipation, fear, and longing. "Okay," she finally murmured, summoning the courage necessary to confront the unknown, to reconcile her past. As she peeled back the layers of tape and beginning to open the box, the world outside held its breath. The thunder rolled in the distance, but what became most resonant was the power burgeoning in the stillness. The realization that together, burdened by the legacies of loss, we had the potential to transform this moment into one of renewal. With one final push, Mary lifted the lid, revealing the contents within, a cascade of memories spilling out, enveloped in the scent of nostalgic warmth. Through her eyes, I could see it all, the weight of the past granting way to moments of laughter laden with sorrow, hurt, but also resilience. As light spilled into the dim corners of the room, I glanced at Cassie, witnessing her eyes shine with gratitude and hope. I saw Mary, bridging the gap between her two lives, hovering on the brink of every unknown waiting to unfold. The storm outside held its breath, as if waiting for the revelation to collide with the uncertainty. And in that moment, we realized we held the power to reshape our stories together, to claim our narratives in shades of beauty instead of the shadows that had threatened to drown us. And there, amidst the remnants of what once was, the beginning of hopeful promise took root. Together, I whispered, and it echoed in the hearts of us all. Together, Mary echoed, her voice steadied with newfound strength. In the midst of the storm, we embraced the shimmering light of possibilities, leaving behind the fragments of our pain and weaving together a tapestry of understanding, hope, and renewal. And in the twilight of despair that had long hung over us, we began to see that even in the chaos, there lay a chance to build anew. Because love isn't merely found, it's continually created an intricate journey of healing. And as we moved toward that nature of love, we knew that sometimes it takes a wild storm to reveal the rainbow we have long sought.